I will follow your lead.
Hi, everybody. It's Linda G. And today I'm so excited. We've been planning this like for a month. I'm here with LS, otherwise known as Lady Shadow. And I really wanted, who was our friend that recommended you to me?
Peaceful Nick the Medium.
Peaceful
She's my
Nick.
BFF.
She said, listen, Linda, you're going to like this gal because she does UFOs. She's had experience, which we'll talk. She does Gettysburg events. She was just telling me the anniversary of her wedding to her wonderful husband, who also happens to be psychic. And show us your deck.
Oh, yes. So this is my 2.0 deck that I just had printed 2 months ago. This is called the Psychic Creations deck, and it's love-based, Wicca-based, with a lot of aurora pictures and pastels, and a new way to kind of see the minor arcana, which is instead of the traditional king, queen, page, and cup, it's master and apprentice. So it's very
Oh,
cool, and it's divided up still in those four categories of archetypes, but it's just a little bit easier to figure out in some ways. And also the meanings are printed on the cards on the major arcana, so it's a super easy read, and they're beautiful to look at.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you're glowing, by the way. You must
Thank
be in a
you.
good mood.
I'm just one of those happy-go-lucky people like you. I have a lot of light to give and share, and I'm so grateful for every day I get to do what I love, Linda, with my time. And that is so, as you know, how important that is, right? When you find your purpose and you run with that, like every day is a gift and a joy because you're not under the stresses of the distractions
You
and the
refuse to
the
allow
prison
that.
world. Yeah, I refuse all that. I do not consent to a prison planet. I consent to free will, and I believe in again fulfilling our purpose. And that's, yeah. And you are
And you
glowing as well.
Oh, not really. I'm pale as can be. But listen, you're also a playwright, a Broadway
Yes.
playwright. Tell us
Well,
about your new project.
sure. I'm actually an off Broadway playwright, which is close. I'm only a couple blocks away. We're getting there. The next and ninth show that I'm writing for Off Broadway is called Afterlife. And I always write my shows with a spiritual undertone, but this one in particular is all about 7 different scenarios as people have just crossed over. And so all of these different characters explore, their special one on the other side. Some of them are confused, some of them are certain why they're there, and they have these wonderful conversations. And the whole play is about presenting different afterlife scenarios across different cultures and life death situations. Like there's a murderer, then there was somebody who was murdered, there was a suicide, there was somebody who died of stress. So I kind of explore the gamut of all of those scenarios in this new play, and it's going up November 3rd through the 9th. And so if anyone's in New York at that time, you're welcome to come and check
Awesome.
it
I
out.
just told her I need to get to New York. I want to see the tower place. I heard it's breathtaking.
Oh, it is, Linda. And you will get so many messages. And then I'm going to drag your buns to Gettysburg and we'll do a live broadcast haunting. Like I know what to take you to all of the hot spots in Gettysburg, and we can live broadcast sections of that. It would
So
have
we'll
so much
go
fun.
in October?
We can. Yes.
Well,
If
I
you want to,
can't do it this October, but next year I could, or
we're
unless I
on
can go
2026.
earlier. Okay.
2026. And you've never been, right?
Never been.
Oh, so you have to go with all of your openness. The only thing about Gettysburg is, I'm attracted to the light like you, and it's so hard sometimes in certain areas of the battlefield, because that was the bloodiest battle of the Civil War, and it was the tide turner, right? And 50,000 people were lost. And so when you walk in there in certain spots, it's both a mixture of gratitude that we are acknowledging those spirits, and there's also that heavy, violent um, remorse and resentment that still fills the air. And so all you want to do is hug these people, these spirits. And just so when we walk in, my husband and I, we just send them so much love. I get chills just talking about it because I send them so much love, and they respond through EVP in live, sessions when we talk to them. I remember I walked onto a battlefield near a cavalry field where I think 8,000 horses were lost, and like you, I'm a spirit animal lover.
Yeah.
I commune with the animals. I have a horse. So it kills me that 8,000 horses were lost in addition to the human life. So devastating. But we walked onto Cavalry Field where it's a little bit out of the normal way of the battlefield tours, off the beaten path. So we go spend time over there because we feel terrible that those spirits are kind of neglected. And we walked on in the middle of the day, and the first thing I said was, "Hi, generals. how are we doing? We're just here to say hi. And a general came in. There were two EVPs in that sentence. One was like a whisper that said, baby. And then right behind
What
that
did he
was,
say? I couldn't hear
we
you.
don't know. It sounded like baby in a
Okay.
whisper. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whisper there. And then right after that, you hear a general say, hello. And it was just it's so cool when they interact with you in the daytime, live,
Yeah.
uninhibited. And it's just, you feel so special because you're being acknowledged by the other side when how many people are really going out and talking to these wonderful spirits? Like, not a lot.
Right. And you know that ground is soaked with the blood.
Oh, it is. And that's why it's such a mixture of peace and serenity and pain. But ironically, the town, and you will feel this, the town is so beautiful and it's protected by all these military battlefields that people can't build on. It's not like, well, Lord forbid Trump doesn't sell our battlefields off because they're hollow ground, but they're protected from people coming in and putting Walmarts on them. So when you drive through a lot of the town, it's all preserved still like the old days with the old
Yeah.
fences and the space that you can drive on and walk around, and you feel it. You feel so much. But I always leave feeling more joy than the pain because I feel like I can heal, help send healing to these people who are still suffering in that loop.
Yeah, there was one of the shows. I don't know if it was Paranormal Witness or one of those. They actually showed a video by Cannon. Remember that one? And you could see the soldiers
Yes.
walking around the cannon. Have you ever
Yes.
gotten anything like that?
We have not gotten a apparition per se, but we get the flying orbs and we get a lot of voices and the smells, Linda. When you are investigating on the battlefield, you'll get the horse manure smell. You'll get the horse smell. Like, you know what horses smell like. They have
Yes.
that smell. Oh, and you'll know something is there. You'll also get the smell of cherry tobacco, sulfur, sometimes death, burning flesh. It's like I said, it's such a mixed bag of energy, but overall, the experience, like I said, you will have such a sense of peace in some spots, and in the other spots, you're gonna really feel the violence. Yeah.
Where do you usually stay when you're there?
I stay in a gamut of places. My favorite is the Farnsworth. If you go to soulsandspirits.com on my paranormal page,
It's
some of
where
the
to go.
some of the best evidence we've ever received was at the Farnsworth Inn, right there on Main Street. There, it has another name, Steinweir, I think it is. And it was a house, like originally a boarding house way back when, and then the owners lived there. And when the Confederates and Union armies stormed the town, the Confederates popped up and commandeered the house and said, "We're going to go into the attic and we're going to sharpshoot at people randomly, and you have no say about this." So the Confederates took the house over and randomly shot, at whoever was driving by, or if they even saw a soldier kind of marching in toward the house. And this was the result of the one and only civilian who got shot in the entire town. Across the street was Jenny Wade baking bread, and the bullet
I
from a
remember that.
sharpshooter, yes, went right through the door and hit her while she was cooking, making bread. And you can still go into that house today, which you and I will arrange to go in because you will love that. And we'll have to do like a whole night investigation there, a couple of hours, and just flesh that out because
Girl.
it's woo,
I
it's so.
attract the ghostesses.
I know you do. And you're gonna just get next level readings. It's gonna be amazing. But the Farnsworth Inn is haunted by this little boy named Jeremy, who is 8 years old. And the story goes that he, was the child of the owners of the house, and he would dart out into the street and kind of dart the carriages going by in town. One day he got hit by a carriage and he died. And so everybody that goes to the Farnsworth wants to connect with this spirit named Jeremy because he's very playful. He makes noises. He like picks up things and moves them for you in your hotel room and whatnot. It's really cool. He's a very friendly, playful spirit, but he's kind of overprotected by one of the sharpshooters that live in the attic. So the attic can be same thing, a mix of good and bad energy. So we were up there after our stay one particular October, and this was way back years ago. And we did a little attic tour the next morning, 9 a.m. A bus goes by on the street, and then we hear 5 footsteps run in because we were calling to him and asking for him to come in and talk to us in the attic. And then he starts playing with toys, and you can see this on my website. Go to the paranormal tab, you will see the video that is a little bit older because it was analog recorded. Back in the day, it wasn't like digitally recorded yet. So we had to reproduce it a couple times to get it on the internet. But you'll hear this. My husband will say, Jeremy, is that you playing with toys? He would answer like in a Morse code tapping. Linda, it was extraordinary. It was
Oh
the
my
most
gosh.
awesome evidence. And then you see this orb floating in front of the camera, pulsating and talking to my husband.
Oh,
It
I
was,
love it.
yes. And if you go to the Farnsworth for a couple of days, I would not be surprised if you connected with Jeremy or if
Now,
we
would
did
I be
again.
able to sleep there? Because I stayed at the Stanley Hotel and couldn't get a
Yeah.
wink of sleep.
Yeah. Well, that is a little bit of a problem. It is hard to sleep because when you open your eyes, you don't know who's going to be standing next to you. We've had energy shadows in the room watching us. We'll open our eyes and see a mist disappear and go
Yeah,
out the
yeah.
window.
I would go there to visit and do it things, but is there like a nice Holiday Inn nearby?
Yes, there are lots of great hotels that you could definitely visit that are not haunted, where you will get sleep. And then yeah, just do a veil hour investigation.
Yeah,
Between
or I could even put the circle around me and tell them to leave me alone while I'm sleeping.
and they're very respectful of that,
Oh,
especially the Jeremy's. I mean, there have been so many incidences of Jeremy coming, and he's very thoughtful, and we called to him and he came. So it's also about, if you ask you shall receive, kind of thing.
you know what else I want to see is those museums. There was a guy, I don't think he's
Oh,
doing the YouTube show anymore, that used to do some YouTube um going through the museums and showing all the fascinating things they have.
you should see the medical devices, Linda. When you go, there's a couple museums in town, and the most popular one is the one they actually just moved it a couple of years ago, kind of back off the battlefield. But oh my gosh, they show you the things that they use to, like, get the limbs off, and it's so antiquated and primitive and so scary and so much. I cannot imagine what these poor soldiers went through physically, emotionally, spiritually. And do you know about Pickett's Charge and Cemetery Ridge? Where all of where General Lee led the Confederates just over this hill, thinking, "Oh, we're going to kill them. We're going to sneak up on them. We can't see over this ridge. We're all just going to march." I think it was, I don't know, 15,000 men all at once came in and just charged who was ever there. But the Union was waiting on the other side, and they were just shooting and cannoning and riding their horses into this line, and the Union won that
Yeah.
because the Confederates didn't see them holding the line back behind the ridge, and that was the actual turning point for Gettysburg, battle wise. And then the Confederates had to retreat after that, and
Isn't that
that
something?
was
And
that was when it turned.
my genealogy, because my dad is a white man, he couldn't help it. My, and then my mom, like my grandfather, Moises Robles, he served in World War II. But we
Oh,
have we have a lot of family that were either Confederate or Union. I even have a one relative that was a prisoner of war, POW, who was a Confederate.
wow.
So I've always been fascinated, but you know the person that comes to me in the mediumship realm? Ulysses S. Grant.
Yep. Yep. I don't.
I
I'm not
absolutely
surprised.
love him.
Yeah.
Love him.
I
And
mean, game changing, right?
oh my God. And I didn't realize how much I liked him until I watched they had some shows. Didn't Ken Burns do something on him?
I think so. I
A
think that.
couple of series, and wow, what a president he was.
Uh, and just there have been so many that have been so in touch with the American people and what we need, and some that are just not in touch. No
No,
names, no names
no, no.
required.
But
They're just
Abraham Lincoln is pretty cool. But I really, of all the presidents that I talked to on the other side, I really like Roosevelt and I really like Ulysses S. Grant.
I love that. That
And
is
he
great.
loved that Julia, by the way.
Amazing.
Absolutely loved his wife.
I love that. And Abe Lincoln, well, like you were saying, is a very gentle, a
Very
gentle
gentle.
soul, very sensitive. And there's a lot of monuments for all the significant, and unsignificant, and the little guy that that they couldn't find the name of or identify all over Gettysburg. They've got so many commemorations so that we, never forget. And get involved in these types of conflicts again, and which is what we're, like you were saying, stay in the light and let's try to collectively
Right.
heal, from the worst, most negative energy, heal that from within, and then we can just spread it out.
Exactly. There was a police officer, I think this was Paranormal Witness, that worked down by Gettysburg. And he pulled over to the side and thought he saw someone standing by the bathrooms. And he thought, they're not supposed to be here this time of night. Is
Yep.
it true you can hear the cannons going at night?
Oh my gosh, Linda, I have so many other stories
Oh,
because
good, good.
you know we have investigated Gettysburg about 40 times.
Okay.
And we
I'm
just
going next year. October
yes,
what? 26?
2026, we're there.
Okay.
A witch, a medium, and another medium, and who else we can get? A couple warlocks. Let's bring them all in.
Well,
Um,
we tell our subscribers we're going. You might get, girl, you get a chain
I
gang down
know.
there.
We'll have a big what do they call, a caravan outside
Yeah.
of everywhere, like parked on the side. Linda G vans and trucks and cars everywhere. I love it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So on our wedding night, we invited all of our family and friends to be a part of our destination wedding. We got married on a haunted part of the battlefield, further back from the main battlefields, on a bed and
Woo-hoo.
breakfast farm. Now, yeah, and so people had come to our wedding, but had never been to Gettysburg, like you. They'd read about it in school and whatnot, and then they experienced it there. And then after the wedding and all the fun in their haunted barn on the haunted battlefield section of where we got married, we went out to Sachs Bridge. Now, your listeners, anyone who's familiar with that Gettysburg, I'm sure knows Sachs Bridge. It's one of the oldest covered bridges in the United States, and they use that to transport soldiers across, both sides to the field hospitals on either side. And so that's a really hot spot. You can go out there like any night of the week at 3 a.m. and you will find a little ghost group or a couple ghost hunters out there in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Gettysburg, like hunting and EVPing and taking photos. And on our wedding night, there's supposed to be a gentleman who stands at the edge of the bridge and kind of kicks the bridge. He kind of just like monitors who's coming across and watches, and a neutral party, just helping people get across, or if somebody needs, like, a watcher, right?
Is
And
he in
so,
spirit or is he a real person?
well, he was a real person apparently at the time. And so during investigation, sometimes you'll hear the tapping of his boots against the end of the bridge, near the base of the bridge. And so we went out one night, and of course, we brought a whole bunch of people from our wedding, maybe 10 or 12 of us, because they're like, we don't believe in spirits. This is just a battlefield. This is just history. It's not haunted, the usual. So we get there, and there's not that many people there, thank goodness. It was, I guess, about almost midnight. And sure enough, there's a sound coming from the end of the bridge that nobody can quite identify, that showed up as soon as my husband and I got there, half dressed in our wedding attire. And you could hear that tapping, boop, boop, right there. No explanation, right on that wood. We took an EVP of it. We took video of it. It's somewhere in my archives, but there was that. There's a cigarette. This guy named Tennessee, who was a spirit, would put a cigarette on the railing, and if he would smoke out there, I guess, at the time. And so now when you offer him a cigarette on the same railing, sometimes you'll see it being dragged on, and the cherry
Wow.
will light up. Yeah, and then the cigarette will turn. We actually have video of that. I should put that on my website as well. I also have a few ghost pictures on my website on the paranormal tab, but you can, like, the top 6 or
I'm
whatever.
gonna have to look at that.
Yeah, they're really cool. And it's not just Gettysburg, but all the other haunted places we've been to. But yeah, and then there's the smells, Linda, that where you're just standing there and there's no one around for miles. You're out in the middle of nowhere, just like, hi, talking to people, recording. And the smells, when they come in, I'm sure you've experienced this as a medium, when you smell something, and it literally burns your throat as if it's real, as if it's completely
Yeah.
actually being inhaled.
I've
And
had
it's
a
the
couple of
most,
evil spirits when
yes.
I've done to help people get rid of them, and it's a putrid smell.
Yeah, you can smell that. I've smelled, like I said, horses, death, cherry tobacco, sulfur, and I don't, whatever that, Nicole knows the best, all the clairs. I don't remember the
Oh,
clair of.
and I get sometimes I get real nice perfume in old
Yeah.
houses.
Oh yeah, perfume. Perfume's a big one, especially when there's, if you're investigating an abandoned building. There's no reason for perfume, nor is there for electrical outages because the power has been shut off in these buildings. So when you are getting anomalies or you're getting spikes on your in your electromagnetic reader, you know that it's not from the power in the building because the power has been cut. You snuck in and you got this live evidence because there's it's abandoned completely. It's wild,
That
which
is
we've
amazing.
done a few times. I'm not gonna mention where because I don't want them coming after me. But I've
Yeah,
I've crossed some lines, to document that there is life after death, which I know, but sometimes
there
you
you
need
go.
proof. You just need proof.
But on that paranormal witness one, that cop came out and he put a light. He saw a man standing there and he's yelling to him and walking towards him a little bit, like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. And then the person starts walking to him and he realizes he can see through him. And he
Yes,
was dressed in full Civil War garb. He wasn't a general or anything.
right.
And he said he was frozen. He couldn't move. And this person, this ghost, came right up to him. And in that moment, he felt so much sorrow and pain. This guy, that's part of my fear of going there because, there was no happy death there. People were like screaming for their mommies, these young
Exactly.
and shocked probably they were dead. But
Yeah.
he said that then the energy form walked through him and he ran to his patrol car and he really had a hard time recovering.
Yeah. And it's not, and you know what? People who do the reenactments every year, oh, bless them, because they actually reenact certain battles, like with
I
full on
imagine the
entire.
ghosts love that.
Yes, they do love that. But when you're there with all those people, you can't always tell, the cannon fire sounds, which are paranormal versus the ones that they're shooting off. But when you're there, when there is no reenactment and you hear the cannons going off, which we have also experienced a couple of times, and they're not allowed to shoot anything off unless it's been approved and if it's a special occasion. So when you're hearing something at 2 a.m. on a random Tuesday in February, it's paranormal, right?
Right.
But like you were saying, you could get so many types of entities hanging out with you. Ones that show up on your camera and not in real life. Ones that show up in real life, not on your camera. So you see like the smells, you can't catch that on a camera, but
No.
you can catch the orbs moving, you can catch the mists moving and, disappearing and appearing. There's so many different ways to capture and to experience this stuff. And the wheat field, for anybody who's listening who has not been to Gettysburg and who has access to it, the wheat field is the most haunted, most bloody part of the battle. So if you want to go there and do some healing for those soldiers
Oh,
there,
I'd love to
the,
do that.
yeah, the wheat field and Cemetery Ridge are the two most violent spots, and so that's where we go to send healing to everybody there, and it feels like they appreciate that, like believe it or not, and you will feel so much because you'll be overwhelmed with
Oh,
messages, like
yeah, because they
I
like to talk to me too.
and
I'll
you
be
got to
doing like
bring
this.
in you got to bring a notebook and a recorder because they will probably talk to you back on your EVP or on your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And um, there was a woman and her son that were driving down the road and said, what's that noise? And they stopped in the middle of this Gettysburg, big, huge thing. And they turned on the recorder and you could hear guns and cannons going off.
Yep.
And she
Yep.
said they looked around and there was no flash of light or nothing.
Yep. You get the sounds, you get the smells, you get everything, and you never know when you're driving around there if you're going to walk into something like a loop or if you're going to walk into an interactive like I did in Calvary Field where he's just like, hello, like, and
Right.
until you play it back. And sometimes you hear this is another phenomenon. You hear it with your own ears, but then you don't hear it on the recording, or you'll hear it on the recording and not with your own ears.
Not with
Or
your.
or it's both. You just
Did
never
you
know.
did you see that one that group of people were together and you think it's fireflies in the field there? And it was all of a sudden you notice, no, it's groups of soldiers like
Yep.
walking.
Yep. I've seen
Whoa,
that.
I
I've
just got
seen
the chills talking about that.
Yes. And another gentleman said he walked into a similar energy where he saw a bunch of mists, like what would look like a normally rolling fog at a time when Gettysburg wouldn't have fog on that field, right? But there's this rolling fog comes in and, little stick figures start to form from the fog. And then you hear, so this is his testimony, and then you hear on his EVP, you hear a trumpet that goes, "Hmm," and then it goes, "Halt company." So he caught all of that on tape. And when you go there, you get to talk to a lot of people. Also, there are 30 to 40 ghost tours now, as
Oh, I
compared
love
to,
that. Yeah.
yeah, back in the day it was one or two or three, and now there's 30 or 40. So you can talk to almost any number of people and get all kinds of stories and share your bits and pieces with other ghost hunters. And the cool thing is, Gettysburg, unfortunately, is not a 24-hour town like New York. My dream one day is to open a spirit cafe in
Yeah.
downtown Gettysburg and leave it open all night long, at least on the weekends, so people can come in and share all their awesome
Well,
ghost
you
evidence.
had an actual interaction. A lot of this stuff is just repeat of place memory. So
True.
sometimes, like even if you can believe it, Alcatraz,
Yeah.
back when it was an actual prison, the warden's wife was outside hanging laundry or something with somebody else. All of a sudden, they could hear cannons going off, and there was a whole reenactment right next to them of soldiers. I don't know if they were Spaniards or something, shooting away at somebody out in the ocean.
Wow.
And it scared that she packed her stuff like I would have and gotten the hell out of there. But okay, what was the scariest time you had there? Because I imagine you can run into some aggressive energy.
You can. Okay. Sachs Bridge, when we are done, okay, so what happens is the battlefields close now around sunset or even earlier now. And since Trump imposed some cuts in some places, sometimes it's even cut back even earlier, certain times of the year. So you don't get to go on the battlefields at night unless you kind of sneak on, wink, wink.
Right.
So everyone goes to Sachs Bridge, right, at night after whatever, 6, 7, or after dark. So by far one of the most investigated places that we go when we're in Gettysburg and done with hanging out on the battlefield and sending some light to all of our buds. We go to Sachs Bridge. And so we stay there quite late, 2, 3 in the morning. We might be the last 2 or 3 or 4 people lingering there. So one night I was there with, there were 4 of us, and the bridge on the other side didn't have a security light at the time. Only one side of the bridge did. So if you cross the bridge into near the woods area where there wasn't a security light, it was really, really precarious energy over there. So we would cross the bridge when we felt bold and, more brave. And we'd start talking. So one night the energy just did not feel right, but they all wanted to go anyway. And I didn't want to be left on the one side of the bridge by myself. So I said, okay, let's all go onto the bridge together. Let's cross the bridge, be very respectful, talk to everybody. We don't want to stir up anything. We don't want to make anything mad, because we're all light. We just want to bring light to these places. We are not interested in stirring up anything negative or harder energy for these poor souls to endure. So we went over to the side, started talking, and we just got a weird energy. A wind blew out of nowhere from the woods. We could hear it, and it was one of those calm nights. And that's another sign, is when the wind kicks up out of nowhere and then just stops. So the wind blew by us. We didn't hear anything, but we had a weird feeling. We all played back the EVP, that, the electronic voice phenomena. It could be on a phone or a tape player. We played it back, and while somebody was saying something, you could hear, "Don't speak." So somebody was very upset that we were speaking. And then another time, my friend and I, there were 3 of us on the bridge. It was pretty late at night, and of course there's still water under the bridge. And we were just talking normally, and then my husband said to my friend, "Oh, I would love to get in a rowboat and get in this water and just be still on the boat, because water's a conductor, as you know, and talk to the ghost from the water instead of the bridge." And then my friend made a profane joke about, "I'd rather get banged by a crazy ghost than actually have to do that, because I would be too scared to do that." And a ghost chimed in on the EVP, a little jokester, and he said, "Gross." So that was a little weird that he said. First of all, that the ghost had a sense of humor, the parent, the other side, which can happen. Obviously, I've gotten some lighter spirits, but the fact that he was interacting with us and actually judging my friend's conversation was fascinating. So that place has been where we got all the hot spots. And then there was another really creepy place. in Connecticut, across from Union Cemetery. Oh my gosh, Connecticut, Linda, is such a haunted state. The energy
Really?
there, yeah, in general, the energy there is just off. It's like, it's almost like the entire state is crossing a bunch of ley lines, and then add like extra Indian burial grounds. And you know all about that with your
Yeah.
history and the
Yeah.
power that that holds. And it just feels like when you go into a Connecticut, like especially into any of these cute little towns that are all quaint and adorable, that you're invading their land, and you just feel an energy like, no, you're not really
Yeah.
welcome.
And there's a
It's,
lot of ghost stories that involve Connecticut.
yes. Did you hear about that weird village that people just, that these settlers? I don't remember the name of it. Oh gosh, I wish I could pull it up really quickly. There's some village there, and it was in the 1800s, and they just up and left. They took all this time to build it and create this community, and then something happened one night, and they all just left and abandoned it. And apparently it was just some really bad energy, they, or something came to them, or it could have been alien, it could, I don't know, it was just, yeah. And so that all the
Is it
buildings,
still there or is it gone?
yeah, some of the buildings are still standing, and I don't think you can necessarily go in and just investigate, but it's not fenced, so you could find the property line and kind of excuse me, sneak into the back, and you could
Right.
probably still.
I think there's one in the UK too. There's a place in the
Yes.
UK that's empty.
Yep, and then there's the Scotland vaults, which we investigated in Edinburgh. Ooh, that's some powerful energy, because talk about old magic and the plague, and the just the older land there that it was settled first. So much, Linda. Have you been over to Europe to?
Yeah, I had a boyfriend
Okay.
in Scotland and
Oh,
Edinburgh,
nice. So you've
and
been
he
there.
took me around to the graveyards and stuff. I didn't
Yeah.
feel a thing, but he lived in what used to be a tenement.
Uh-huh.
Remember how they built him like in a circle, and in the middle was grassy, so you children could play, and they had a bunch of the ties so you could hang your laundry.
Yes. Yes.
And there was a shared
The
bathroom
little
next to it.
courtyards.
Yeah,
Yeah. The old time
courtyard.
court.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could
Paris
feel
has a lot.
energy there. I could feel energy there. And
Yeah.
then I've been
It's
in uh my family's heritage between Scotland and Ireland too.
That's wonderful. Yeah,
Ireland, I
Ireland is
love
beautiful.
Ireland. Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful there. Yeah, we've done a little bit. Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland is another place we investigated. They have a castle that's connected to an old hotel called the Dobbins Inn, where there were underground tunnels where the shenanigans went on even then, where they would sneak people from the castle from over here, over there, like prostitutes and things. And we stayed in one night we were staying there, and again didn't sleep much because we knew how haunted it was. And in the middle of the night, the toilet seat slammed down so hard that woke us up. We could not go back to sleep.
Oh
We're like,
no, I
okay,
no, I'd be packing my stuff. I said, let me just let you have this place.
yeah, but Linda, there's no way you do that, because you are brave and you stand in your light. So that would never happen. You are not afraid of anything, because
I
you're
say the
just,
powder of Christ will compel you.
amen, girl.
So, did you ever, and this will be my last question on Gettysburg
Sure.
because we got to get to the UFOs next. Did you ever go to that place? I saw a ghost show where they had gone to this place where they took the injured soldiers upstairs and there's all kinds of blood on the floor. And that place had a lot of action going on.
There are a lot of buildings, almost every building in Gettysburg that was used in the war for whatever
Yeah.
reason. There were a lot of field hospitals. Um, so any of the buildings that they still let you in now, you can have a experience there if you're patient enough, and you'll at least feel the energy. You'll get some, by proxy evidence of some sort. But would that be like the Rose, or what's it called?
It might have been where that woman was killed. There's a
Jenny Wade, the
bullet
Jenny
hole,
Wade house.
a
Yeah, it
bullet
could have
hole
been.
in they even show it. You can still see some bullet holes through
Oh,
the,
that's the Farnsworth. Yeah, that's the
okay.
Farnsworth. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's the story of Jeremy, and where the sharpshooter. So while the sharpshooter was in the attic, the bullet holes, indeed, the from the Union to fight back, yeah, shot up the Farnsworth from the other end of the street where Jenny Wade's house was. And
Right.
that, yeah, you can go there now and still see those bullet holes. Yeah, so that's the Farnsworth. But there's the Rose. I think it's the Rosebud Farm. It's called. That was a field hospital. Several
And
of
those hospital pictures were the piles of horses
oh,
that were dead, and the
yes,
limbs that they cut off were in a
yes.
huge pile.
No anesthesia,
No
nothing.
anesthesia.
And when you go on one of the walking tours, and you only have to go on one, Linda, because you'll get the kind of the history all in. If you take any of them, you get the nice big history chunk. But there's a office building now, and same thing. It's not really open to the public, but they take you to the outside of the building where all the limbs were piling up on the side too. And they said, oh, this in this field hospital makeshift that was whatever it was then, the limbs were piled all the way to the third floor.
Oh
And
yeah.
and you know this, that the entire town was running red with blood. The creeks, the river,
The
I mean, it was,
smells.
there's not a river through Gettysburg, but but there were creeks that were, when it gets flooded, you get, there's a nice creek by the Sachs Bridge, for instance. So all that water runoff into the battlefields, in the areas where there is running water, that all ran red during that time of that war. Woo! Let me tell you, it's
It was
heavy.
a
It's
sad
really
war.
heavy. And ironically, it happened in that first week of July when we were celebrating the 4th. All of this horribleness happened, what was it, the 1st or the 3rd? So,
Yeah.
I mean, what a way to get news about your brothers and sisters that are marching and fighting for, our
A lot
country,
of them were
and
just kids. They were
just
kids.
kids. Yes. And that's the devastating part. They didn't even get to start their lives yet, and fighting for a cause they believed in. And I just never want us to get to that place again, Linda. We have to do everything we
Do
can
you
to live
have a
our life.
past life as a soldier or anything, or do you know?
I have I read a past life with them?
Have you had a past life?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I
I
know that.
must have because the connection I have to
Yep.
maybe I was his daughter or something. I have a strong
To
connection
Ulysses. To
to
Ulysses.
Ulysses. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. I'll have to give you a reading one time, next time, and we'll find out.
There you go.
I'd love to
There you
know.
go.
I'd love to know if this magical deck, and as you know, when you create your own deck, I mean, magic happens because all of your emotions and your art and your visions are put into here. And it's not like just going into a store and randomly buying a deck that somebody designed, or digitally or whatever. I put all the components into this, like you did to your deck, your
I
animal
don't
deck.
have a deck.
You used to have an animal deck, right? Didn't you
No,
design an animal deck?
no, I've never designed a deck.
Oh, you never designed a deck.
I'm friends with Tish James in Australia who does these decks.
Oh, sweet.
And
Okay.
she designs decks for people.
Oh, okay. Did she design one for you?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm not creative that way. I'm not, you're
Really?
creative. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you designed the Northern Animal deck or something. I was
No, no, no. I
okay.
didn't. I ain't done shit. I can bake a pie though.
I bet you can. Well, what deck do you use right now? I want to see. Can I see really quick?
I
I'm
use
curious.
Morgan Greer a lot.
Okay. Is that what you connect to?
For
Oh
some
yeah.
reason, I've been using it for years.
I love it. Yeah.
And I've had a friend who does her decks that I use for my 3 cards, Deborah Zaku. It's called the Clarity deck.
Oh, those are pretty. Nice.
So,
Yeah, I like. I've designed. This is my second deck that I've designed, and it's the last one I designed was 12 years ago. This is a huge upgrade, and it's really cool to do readings with, with the images that you came up with and put on
yeah.
paper. And so yeah, so this deck is actually for sale on the website if you connect. And just to let everybody know, I consider myself a witch, but I am 100% love-based, metaphysical white Wiccan. So I don't dabble in any negative energy. Love, as you know, is the most powerful
Most
vibe in the
powerful tool.
universe.
Tell me what
Yes.
you were telling me when we first talked. It only takes so many people.
Yeah. So I read on this spiritual blog recently that it only takes 144,000 beings, workers in the light, who are genuinely living their purpose and genuinely want perfect love for the collective and healing for our world. It only takes 144,000 people to come together strong enough to shift the collective consciousness and the evil to a point where they're going to be so fearful they kind of retract, like in the Civil
And
War, they
that's
just
something.
back up, which is an amazing feeling that the little guy, if we just channel more love in ourselves and into our lives and into our hearts, and then give that back out, that we can actually make a change. We can actually affect that butterfly effect. And that is
And
what
it involves, and also breathe it out and try to shut that mind down. Because when we overthink, we go into a state of resistance.
absolutely.
That
And
which is likened to itself is drawn. So if you're always worried about money, guess what? You don't have any money.
that's right. That's right. The doors start shutting. The minute you get stressed about your bills, for instance, it's so funny because on my bill sheet, I have at the bottom, my bills allow me to have this amazing, joyous life, and I'm happy to pay my bills. And it changes everything when you're writing the checks out or going online and paying things, because it affords you the life that you are living. So there's nothing wrong with bills. Bills are just a product of our amazing lives. So we should not fear
Exactly.
them. Don't get stressed. And this is what my husband and I, we have a coaching business. So we teach people manifestation. We teach people how not to shut those doors and keep our bodies in a parasympathetic nervous system, so that the more relaxed we are, the more we can manifest. And I know you talked about that. You
Oh,
talk about
yeah.
that all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Because in that, if you can breathe and be in the now, in the present,
yes,
you vibrationally are a lot brighter. And guess what? The realm is attracted to the light. If you're
absolutely.
always bleak and thinking dark thoughts, well, it just passes right by you.
Yeah. Yeah. And also light can penetrate the most small amount or largest amount of dark. So the light always wins. And so when people talk to me about, well, you're a witch, you're automatically evil. Well, okay, first of all, I'm a witch because I was raised like you out in, with the earth on my feet. I was
Yeah.
raised 6,000 feet above sea level in the mountains of northern Nevada, where I had horses and I was always barefoot and playing in the mud, and I connected with my earth, right, with my Gaia. So
Right.
I feel like that's why I'm an earthly, not a religion, but I walk an earthly path. But using love and the Gaia put together, woo, powerful combination.
Hell to the F.
You being Comanche and all, so
Yeah.
it's all good. And so I try to, so that's another thing I sell on my website is a Wicca course that explains, hey, like you can learn love-based Wicca. You can do this really wonderful path that's self-empowering and enlightening. And you don't need 20 people to follow you like a cult. It's literally a kind of a one-man journey sometimes. Sometimes I have a coven gathering with my fellow souls, but it's all about, like you're doing, collective light, raising the consciousness, and
Raising the
when
conscious.
and holding space for people who are too stressed to be able to connect with that. So you and I and Nick and all of your other amazing guests are going to hold that space for you and give it to you because we have it to give. And that's how we
Exactly.
lift each other up.
Exactly. So tell me about your UFO experiences.
Well, I have, what's interesting is, well, I live just outside of New York City. And just on July 2nd, we got another little weird light show that happened at 2:30 in the morning that I can't explain. I'm going to put it on my website in the next couple of days. I have one that's there now that I got. I think that one was last fall, maybe. I'm not sure when I actually took that one. But we got these weird lights in the sky, and I actually had ChatGPT professional version analyze it, because you can't just send it to your local police department and say, hey, I saw these lights, analyze it for me. Like, what is this? They'll think you're crazy. We did do research. There was nothing in the area militarily. We're near West Point, so we had to check on that. We checked with the authorities about events in the area, searchlights. So these lights were crazy in 6 or 7 succession points, flying around in the same part of the sky, coming from the southwest going northeast, and then they would switch and do something else. And you know what, Linda, they're scared of us witnessing them because they're doing it behind the clouds. On a clear night, they don't do it. They do it behind the clouds so you can see just enough light kind of poking through, and you can see the
They
pattern.
sure have been showing themselves a lot,
They've
though.
been showing themselves, but only during the wee hours of the night for people like myself who are night owls, who are actually out looking. Because I'll go on my local Facebook pages and I'll say, hey, has anyone seen this? Here's a video snippet. And everyone's like, huh, no, I missed that. I was sleeping. But then one or two people, and this is like 12,000 people on this page, one or two people will say, hey, I saw that too, and it was really weird. And I was going to post it, but I thought everybody would mock me. And so it's still up from last week, and people are still commenting about that. But I'll put that new one on my website in the next couple of days so you can see that one too. But ChatGPT said straight out it was some sort of unmanned plasmic movement that is definitely not military, definitely not even a drone, Definitely not a plane, obviously, because they're just flying around at weird speeds and weird patterns. Um, and they were pretty bright. So that happened. That's the second time I've seen those weird lights. And I'll just tell you a quick story. When I was living in San Francisco, Nick, Peaceful Nick, my buddy, she was there when this happened. I don't know if she told you about this, but we were living in San Francisco together. She came over, spent the night. She passed out. I'm a night owl, but I was asleep by 12. And I had big blackout curtains over my bay windows in San Francisco because I didn't like the light. I'm a night owl. I want to sleep until 12 o'clock, and not have the light bother me. So they were blackout curtains. One night I nodded off. Yep. And oh, the night before that, sorry, my roommate was telling me how he used to be abducted by aliens. And I was like, oh, okay, I believe in aliens, but my friend was a little bit, over the top with things sometimes. So I thought, no, that can't really be true. But he's like, no, seriously, and you can laugh about it, but they come to me. They started in Connecticut, ironically, where he lived before he moved to San Francisco, and they follow me wherever I go. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not really judgmental, but the way he delivered it was so matter of fact, like it can't be true, right? So this night I'm sleeping. And at 2 a.m. sharp, in fact, you can corroborate this because I had the story printed in Fate magazine at the time. I think it was 94, 93. And then later, Fate reproduced this experience, which is an article that I wrote in a book called Strange Mysterious Lights or something. So you can still get that book right now somewhere on Amazon. It's like, it was, again, I think that was put out in 1999 or something. So they reprinted my article because I signed my rights away like a dummy. And so they actually quote me in the intro saying the lights, says Elise, blah, 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 of Los Angeles. I was living in Los Angeles after I left San Francisco. So this night, laying there, and Linda, my eyes were closed. And like when your eyes are closed, you see dark. And when light comes in, something is changing in your eyelids, right? You can sense the light. So all of a sudden, this bright light permeates my eyelids, my room, and it woke me up because it was so bright. It was like a doctor going right up to you in your eyelid and shining one of their super bright highlights into your eyelids. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I know maybe Nicole is messing with me, because she was spending the night in the corner of the room. And I wake up and my whole room, remember, blackout curtains in full coverage of my windows, light was pouring in to my room, and it lit up the whole room like lightning, just turned on, but not like a flash. It just turned on. And I could see brighter light coming through the sides of the curtains. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? I sat up out of bed and I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God. And I yelled to Nicole, the lights, do you see the lights? Holy crap, the lights, like, what is that? And of course, there's no sound, there's no helicopter, there's, California has a lot of crime copters where they shine the light, in your windows when you are, when they're looking for somebody sometimes in the streets, but no sound. And then as soon as I sat up and looked around, boom, it went dark. And I was like, what the hell? I woke Nicole up. I said, Nicole, did you see that? Did you? She's like, no, I didn't. I'm going back to bed. And I laid there with my heart pounding for the next half hour. I could not go back to sleep. Next morning, I'm having breakfast with my roommate. And he's like, oh, how'd you guys sleep? The usual. Oh, this weird thing happened to me, Keith, last night. Like, just for shits and giggles, I'll tell you. Like, got this really weird experience. Like, I was a witness to these crazy lights coming in my room. And he said, oh, yeah, by the way, they came to me last night. I'm like, what do you mean they came to you? He's like, yeah, we were just talking about the aliens a couple weeks ago, and they actually came to me last night. I said, what time was that? He's like, I don't know, like 2:15 or something. I said, how did you know? He said, because when they take him, he looks around what's happening because the light permeates his room as well. And then they just take him, and he tries to get a glimpse of everything in his room before he's taken so he can kind of make note that I better come back here. Like, okay, I'm being taken and I'm aware of this, but in a couple of minutes, I'm going to be out. I'm going to be out like a light. I don't know what they do to me. And then he wakes up in his bed, like doesn't even, like it never happened. And sure enough, this night that I witnessed these lights, supposedly at the same time, he was being abducted for who knows how long.
I'm glad I'm not on their dance part.
You don't want to be on that list, right?
No, isn't that amazing?
It was, I will never forget it, Linda. I get chills talking about it. And Nick, Peaceful Nick, my friend who got me to connect with you, she was right there witnessing like that. We talked to him the next day, even though she didn't see the light. She saw my reaction.
She woke you up because you were freaked out.
I was freaked out. Yep. And girl, let me tell you, and all those details are still in that book somewhere, floating around the internet. And for total recall, and I bought the book. I have it here somewhere. but I have it because it reminds me that that was so real and so poignant
That
and
was
one of the
so real.
craziest things that ever
Did
happened to me.
you see anything when you were a kid living out there in the mountains?
So, have you ever heard of the town Virginia City, Nevada?
Yes, that's hella
Okay.
haunted.
Have you been there yet?
Yes, many times.
Okay, good. I was raised there. So
Oh
in
my
North,
God, that
so
place is
northern,
hella haunted.
yes, so haunted. So this is probably why I attract this stuff because I didn't live in Virginia City when I was raised. I lived in the Highlands, which is just outside of Virginia City, but we spent a lot of time in Virginia City and I went to the schools there. So, oh man, me and my friend used to run around and try to chase ghosts all the time up there. But it wasn't until I was older and through like puberty and went back later on as an adult that I was able to kind of see through the veil. Because when you're a kid and you've got all your hormones, all you care about is like boyfriends and being in the theater and riding your horse, and you know that something's off and haunted, and you know that exciting things under the veil are going on, but
Yeah.
you're just like focused on being a teenager. So I just assumed, yeah, I live in a ghost town. Oh well, it's like old hat. But I didn't see anything until late, experience things till later. Talk about another haunted area. Almost every building there is haunted.
Oh my
And
God.
what did you investigate there? What buildings did you get to go in?
The old Silver Saloon or something like
Yeah,
that.
The Silver Dollar,
Oh
and the
my
Silver Queen.
God,
There's
there
also
was
the
all
Silver
kinds,
Queen.
and we slept in a place that had the best food, by the way. But we
Nice.
slept in a room, my girlfriend and I, and she got woke up. I'm glad it wasn't me, where there was some mining shaft near it, and she could hear the men at the
Wow.
mining shaft. But that place was hella spooky.
I wonder if that was so. There's a couple of main hotels. There's the Silver Queen that used to be a boarding house that is still in full swing. My friend Connie owns it. One of my teachers from back in the day, she's the owner there. And then the Tahoe House, that's also very haunted, but very comfortable. That's uptown a bit. And then there's a more newer hotel that they built more recently in the last 15 years. That's kind of off the beaten path where the camel races used to happen.
Mhm.
And that there's hauntings there too, but probably not what you must have been in the Silver Queen then.
I
Was it like a boarding house?
Well, it was a cute little, rinky dink, but they had a lovely kitchen and they had the best food.
Oh, that
But
might have
the
been one of the
room
bed and
it's
breakfasts. Okay.
but
Okay.
the room was near some sort of mining shaft. I think it was across from the school building or something.
Okay.
And she heard,
The equipment.
people like to sleep in that area. You pay extra to sleep. I didn't want to sleep there, but
Yeah.
she could hear the miners.
Yeah. Yeah. You can pay for the haunted rooms in all these different places, a little bit more, absolutely, or you can pay to be left alone. But like I said, Linda, you'll never be left alone because they know that they can get a hold of you.
They're saying,
You're
"Oh,
like you like got
I
a
know
pager.
her."
You got the paranormal pager in your pocket at all times.
Okay, well, I actually talked to an ET who came to me.
Really?
He
Oh my
doesn't come
gosh.
to me very often, but
Tell me everything.
maybe 2 years ago, I saw him and he said to me, we're not here to destroy you. Man has free will, but we can't help you. You'll have to help yourselves. The only thing we can do is stop any nuclear invasion.
Yep.
That's the only
Interesting.
thing. They
How
have
long
total
ago was that,
permission.
Linda?
Probably a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Okay. And we're always on the verge of a nuclear war, so it's like
They
good to
will
know.
stop it. That's why I don't worry.
Yeah,
When
exactly. I
Kim
kind of don't worry
Jong-un and
either.
whoever, when Putin or whatever, I said, yeah, try it, sucker. Watch what happens. Well, if you watched any of those paranormal shows, there's
I
generals
did.
and everything else talk about, they've literally shut down nuclear sites
Yeah.
with like 5 different areas that you have to have a key and a code for each one. Shut it down like that. And everybody's freaking out. And then they shut it right back up.
The
I mean,
amazing
shut
thing
it.
is, right, because their technology, which is where all this originated from, I think, starting with the pyramids, they already know how to shut power on and off using ley lines and
Isn't that
connections
something?
through the different pyramids all around the world. So they don't even need the keys and codes. They just can telepathically do it.
Isn't
And
that
we'll
amazing?
never even know what hit us. Whether, I
Yeah.
mean, as in like why is all this shut down? Who shut this down behind the scenes? Is it a hacker? No, it's the aliens. You're right.
But you know, they tisk tisk, they shake their heads about us because it's just really bad. And listen, this person that's in office now selling off estates and stuff, this too shall pass. He's not going to last long. That I can tell you.
I am so
Not,
glad to hear
I'm
that,
not
Linda.
saying death. I'm just saying he's about ready to go.
I think so too. And also, with his defiant behavior, and so they don't want somebody so radical and irrational running things, because you can't control him, and the government's all about control. They want to
Yeah.
make sure that their people are regulated, and he doesn't regulate himself.
No.
And I've been
And
listening to, yeah.
all those people, Steve Bannon and that guy from TV, I can't remember, and even Alex Jones, who had no problem lying about babies, are
Yep.
all pissed off at him about closing out that Epstein thing.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And it's because he's in there, you know?
Yeah, well, when it
I
happened,
mean,
and I couldn't believe that happened, now we find out they cheated, which makes total sense. It makes me feel better, actually, because I know he didn't win fair and square.
of
But
course.
the guy said to me, I said, how could you? Why would you tell me? Blah, blah, blah. And they said, Linda, man has free will, and his people need to see how bad he really is.
I agree.
So my sense, especially from the first time he was in office, I always saw the Republicans turn and throw tomatoes at him and walk away like rats from off a ship. So it'll get to a point that people just don't care about. And when nobody, that's the worst thing you can do to him. Not give a crap one way or the other if he comes or goes. Did you see Netanyahu say, sir, I've nominated you to win the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you believe
and
that?
Trump says, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And I thought, here's a guy that demolishes young children on the streets of Gaza, but he wants this guy, this clown, to get the no. Oh, forget about it. He's not going to win.
I can't. I can't. I listen to your readings for the world and for the politics, and when I see you coming on so confident in what you're getting, I start to feel better too, because I'm like, I
Yeah.
trust Linda.
Well, I'm
I
telling
know
you,
you're
it's happening. Somebody just sent me a real nice. See, I don't remember what I said. So somebody
you say
wrote
a
me.
lot
I
of
just
wonderful things, very
but
comforting to us.
but somebody wrote me and said because I couldn't remember that guy that had murdered those four people. Why? Somebody said, why did he do it? And I said, I don't know. And somebody, a friend of mine, wrote me and said, I remember exactly what you said. You this time before weeks before the perpetrator was even caught, you told everybody because somebody said, well, so Linda, what's going to happen? Who was it? I said it was a man that was following them that was upset about being reneged by one of the women. Apparently, the girl that he really wanted to kill didn't make it that night because her mom insisted of her staying at her house to watch the dog. But there was another girl, apparently one of the girls, of the two girls that were sleeping in the same bed, he violently beat her as well as stabbed her.
Oh
But
my gosh.
anyway, he did it. I said, before I knew who it was, I said, he doesn't live nearby. He's had his eye on them. And he probably lives, I said, with his mother. Well, he lived with his parents. And so what I said, and then she said 4 weeks later, they found him for all those reasons you said. She said, that's when I started to watch you.
Linda, you're amazing. I didn't know about you until so many months ago. And yeah, so you're in my feed. I
Thank you.
keep up with, no, and you're amazing.
Thank you.
And it's my honor to be here. And I
It's
just
an
thank you
honor
so
to
much.
meet everybody and anything I can do for you. And let me tell you, I'm going to Gettysburg. Y'all pack your
Can't
bags. We're
wait.
going to Gettysburg.
We are, and we're going to do a live investigation, and we have to do like a live feed at least for,
It's the first time people are going to see me squeal.
yes, but you'll also be able to channel some wonderful messages
Yeah,
from
I'll
these
get
four
the
guys
holy
over
water
there.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, a lot of it is just people reaching out to get out of this loop, the loop of the violence and what happened to them. And a lot of them, it came by surprise. So they're still confused. And I think that with a collective group, that we can go out there and free some of these
And
guys.
free some of them. And
Yeah, let's do
when I
that.
was begging for my life because I had breast cancer,
Yep.
if you read my book,
Yeah. Well, I read your whole bio. Yeah.
oh, thank you. Well, while I was walking down that path and I was begging for my life because my boys were still young, that man said in my right ear, "What are you doing? You know there's no such thing as death." Because as a nurse, I saw lots of people leave their bodies.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
lots of spirit, very natural thing. So I said, I got embarrassed. And that's when I handed my life over and said, "Into thy hands I commend my spirit," because, and something happened to me in that minute. I've never been the same. And I'm healed.
Amazing. And we were, I think Nick told you we have a podcast called the Soul Twin Stars podcast, and we just interviewed Dr. Eben Alexander, who talked about the afterlife, and same thing, that no matter where you are in life, the other side is just all love and takes you back to source and healing. And I think that if we bring some of that back with us, like you did, and proving that your health can be sovereign and that you can talk to your cells and you can order them health and vigor and protection and light. Like I'm telling you, light is, you can never go wrong working in light. Like I said, tell all of my witches and warlocks who want to study at the Wicca path, if you stay in the light, you will be such a manifestor, powerful,
Stay in
enlightened.
the light. That's the key.
Yeah, because the darkness, as alluring as it is to people, it's not nearly, can't never beat the amazingness of love and light.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, my
You're
friend.
the best. Thank you, Linda. I'm so
Thank
happy to
you,
be here.
honey.
I hope you will have me on again.
I'll have you on again. Maybe we'll have Nick and you on too.
Yeah, and we can even like do a collective, we could do collective healing. We could do collective seance. We could send out all kinds of good vibes to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love a seance with what's his name?
Oh.
How soon I forget.
Ulysses, your buddy? Yes. Yes.
He talks to me.
Totally
I'm telling you, he's alive and well on the other side.
I bet.
He might have taken another body, but he's not in another body right now.
Well, even if he were, there's source and then there's fractals of source. So we can be living many bodies at a time on several timelines.
Dolores Cannon talked about that.
Yeah, Dolores. Yep. And you could call Ulysses in right now and he could be literally next to you. And you guys could be chatting and he could be in another body. It's all omnipotent and omnipresent. It's amazing.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Okay, sweetheart. You take care.
You're the best, Linda. I hope to see you soon.
Hold on. I'm just going to pause this out.
Okay.
Hold on.